Canada, a massive landmass rich in oil, natural gas, and critical minerals, has long acted as an economic shock absorber for the United States. With these resources flowing steadily across the border, Washington enjoyed reliable energy at a favorable cost, but that may be changing. When United States President Donald Trump introduced and then temporarily suspended tariffs on Canadian goods, he signaled a shift toward protectionism, and Canada took notice. In response, Ottawa began expanding its gaze toward Europe and Asia. But what does this redirection mean for the United States? If Canada, America's largest and most convenient energy supplier, starts sending its resources across oceans instead of pipelines, could Washington lose one of its key geopolitical and economic assets? Canada's new commodity ties with the European Union and Asian powers have sent a jolt through global trade markets. If affordable heavy oil, ample natural gas, and strategic minerals are rerouted toward Europe and Asia instead of the United States, the consequences could be vast, from energy prices and job markets to industrial strategy and national security. Let's unpack what Canada's energy reorientation means for the global balance of power and for America's energy future. Canada sits on enormous reserves of oil and natural gas, and in recent years, these assets have made the country a focal point in global energy shifts. Although the United States is now the world's top producer of oil and gas, it still remains, heavily reliant on Canadian imports, especially heavy crude oil, which many American refineries are specifically built to handle. Canada supplies over half of United States oil imports and nearly all of its imported natural gas. It's also America's main foreign source of electricity and minerals like uranium. This makes Canada central to United States energy security, stable pricing, and infrastructure reliability. However, Trump's move to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods and a proposed 10% tariff on Canadian oil has rattled this deeply integrated energy relationship. Canada, in turn, has accelerated its push to diversify energy exports. Canada's political leadership, surprised by Washington's new hostility, is now more focused than ever on building partnerships beyond North America. The government's official goal is to increase non-U.S. exports by 50% by the year 2025. Both Europe and Asia are central to this plan. The European Union, one of the world's largest economies, is already Canada's second-largest trade partner. The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA, signed in 2016 by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and EU leaders, provisionally removed nearly all tariffs between the two sides and opened up markets for services and public contracts. This agreement gives Canadian companies access to a $3.3 trillion market across all 27 EU member states. Yet final ratification is still pending, stalled by political friction in countries like Italy, Ireland, and Poland. Each has its own reasons, ranging from fears about corporate power to concerns over food safety and agricultural protections. Some parliaments simply don't prioritize it. Brexit didn't help either. The United Kingdom was an early CETA supporter, but now trades with Canada under a separate temporary framework. Still, amid U.S. tariff threats, there's renewed urgency on both sides of the Atlantic to finalize CETA and make it a powerful tool for reshaping Canadian trade patterns. What would the United States lose if Canada turns away? Well, if Canadian energy exports increasingly head overseas, the United States could face several challenges, Reduced access to affordable energy. The United States might lose its advantageous position in securing low-cost, dependable energy. That's something to think about, isn't it? Weakened bargaining power. A diversified Canadian trade portfolio would reduce Washington's leverage in future energy deals. Quite a shift in dynamics, don't you think? Strategic vulnerability. So, as Canada becomes less reliant on United States markets, America may, actually struggle to count on Canadian supply during geopolitical emergencies. Canada is already signing new commodity agreements, not just with the European Union and Asia, but even with the United States, to really highlight its strategic role in the global energy supply. To maintain relevance, Canada must frame itself not as a passive supplier, but as a strategic enabler of global energy security. So this means elevating key commodities to drive an industrial revival right here at home, stimulating innovation and investment across mining, manufacturing, and clean energy, and, implementing sustainability strategies like methane capture and low emissions mining. It's not just about exporting raw materials, it's about exporting value. Washington's decision to impose a lighter 10% tariff on Canadian energy, compared to 25% on metals, already signals that the United States recognizes the indispensable nature of Canadian resources. Now, Canada must use that leverage to secure stronger long-term trade agreements. Canada's oil and gas, are kind of like a hidden gear in the U.S. engine. Canadian oil and gas exports don't just fill American pipelines, they actually stabilize the entire system. Canada's crude oil, believe it or not, accounts for nearly 1/4 of total U.S. oil consumption. Many U.S. refineries, especially those in the Midwest, are designed specifically for Canadian heavy crude. Switching away would mean expensive retooling or, honestly, a new reliance on volatile sources like Venezuela or the Middle East. The newly expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline has, tripled Canada's capacity to export oil to Pacific ports, opening the door for energy exports to Japan, South Korea, and beyond. Natural gas tells a similar story. Canadian gas already makes up about 9% of total U.S. natural gas use, and honestly, that share can grow. As demand surges from data centers, AI infrastructure, and reshoring industries, Canada can help fill the gap, keeping domestic prices low while the U.S. ships LNG to Europe and Asia. Canada is also preparing to become a major liquefied natural gas, or LNG exporter in its own right, with 6 projects in progress on the West Coast. Once complete, they'll place Canada among the world's top 5 LNG exporters. Electricity, another quiet lifeline. While the United States mostly powers itself, Canadian electricity plays a vital support role. Canada helps light up cities across the Northeast and Midwest. Hydro-Quebec's upcoming transmission line will supply up to 20% of New York City's electricity needs, saving $17 billion over 30 years. Over 30 cross-border transmission lines already connect Canadian and American grids. As electricity demand spikes, especially from AI-driven data centers, which are expected to use 12% of total U.S. electricity by 2028, Canada's clean and affordable electricity will be even more important. Canada's new energy strategy isn't just about economics. It could, reshape geopolitics. Its ability to supply energy to both the United States and its allies gives Ottawa a key role in the global energy transition. A well-planned diversification strategy could help Canada become not just a supplier, but honestly, a stabilizer. So what happens next? If the United States continues to impose tariffs and Canada keeps building bridges to Europe and Asia, we could see a major rebalancing in North American energy. Will the United States adapt to a more multipolar energy world or try to reassert dominance over its northern neighbor? That's the big question. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.